Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, and welcome back to the Homestead Education Podcast. I just want to remind you that you can get all of my homestead science books on my website and many on Amazon for a new way of teaching agriculture to today's youth and aspiring homesteaders by focusing on small-scale farming and self-sufficiency. If you're a school, co-op, or retailer and need invoicing, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Are you looking for new ways to advertise your business? I would like to invite you to advertise your business on the Homestead Education Podcast. Did you know that 60% of listeners will make a purchase after hearing an ad on a podcast? Why is this? Because personal connections and credibility from someone they truly trust will give you the best conversions. My podcast has been on the air for over 3 years now, and with an average of 5,000 downloads per episode and tons of long-term listeners, you're bound to have somebody who will find that credibility in me. All ad spots will be promoted on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and my weekly newsletter. I have podcast sponsorship spots available that are affordable for all business sizes. And all advertising revenue will be used towards my educational outreach in the form of travel costs, curriculum development, supplies, and the administration of such activities. Go to my show notes now or visit thehomesteadeducation.com/podcast-sponsorship. I hope to hear from you soon. Hello, guys. Are you enjoying spring? Because I believe spring is here. We have had some beautiful, beautiful days, some of those nice spring rainstorms, all the things that we love. Um, I realize that I am so far behind on starting my seeds. I mean, it is bad, bad. Um, and I got these awesome new sleeves from Farmers Defense. If you guys want to go check them out, you can actually get a discount, um, a 10% discount with, I think it's code Homestead Education, but I will make sure I note that in the show notes because these sleeves are awesome. Um, they keep me from like having breakouts, sunburns, all sorts of stuff when I'm gardening. So, and I have some videos coming out on how to use them. But anyways, I pulled them out and I went out to do seed starting and I was just like really kicking myself because I usually start like onions and celery back in January and then I start my tomatoes in March and it is the middle of April and I had nothing started. Like I was just ugh. And so I was trying to like make myself feel a little better and uh I started digging. I've always used garden.org to see when I should start my seeds. And I decided I couldn't find it. And then I remembered that Survival Garden Seeds told me that they were going to do a when to start your seeds calendar. And I was like, I would much rather use that because I really like them. I have a code with them too. I think it's Kody 10. But I love them and their website is really clean and easy to use. So I decided to hop over there and see what their website said. And it actually said that a lot of my stuff didn't need to be started or I was only a little late, which was super encouraging because I do have issues every year of like my celery being super woody. So I thought, well, maybe even if I didn't even have as big of celery, if it wasn't as woody, I would probably use it more, eat more of it fresh rather than just in salad or in soups and stuff. So that was that was pretty encouraging. Um, Also, a couple of my other things, like tomatoes, man, I always want to start them so early. And then I end up like repotting and repotting and repotting. And I feel like that's really hard on the plants. They do get really big, but I get hit and miss on the tomatoes. And something was eating the crud out of my tomatoes this year. And honestly, I don't know that it was bugs. I think it might have been creature. And I don't know what creature it was. I have a pretty good fence around my garden, but it doesn't have like a top, which I did partially did that on purpose. One is I just didn't want to do a fence high enough to do like a bird net. they always kind of bothered me. My mom had one over her garden and it was always catching in my hair because I was taller than her and it drove me crazy and I want my garden to be a really happy place. Plus I don't want to feel trapped in it. And but my cats can get in, but my cats weren't eating the tomatoes. I did have a cat. He used to eat tomatoes when I was a kid, but my cats currently don't. And so, and I see them catching mice in the garden and stuff. So I want them to be able to get in. So I don't know what was eating my tomatoes, but I didn't get a single large tomato out of my garden last year because every single one of them had like a silver dollar sized eaten spot out of them. And they were big, beautiful tomatoes. And I tried like going out and trying to catch them a couple days early and letting them ripen on the counter. And I wasn't catching them early enough. And I mean, there's a place where they aren't even starting to turn. So if you pick them, you're going to end up just wasting them anyways. So well, I do some stuff with green tomatoes, like fried and some pickled, but that's not the point. I want like a big, yummy, juicy red tomato, and I did not get any out of my own garden last year. I had a ton of cherry tomatoes, and I think there were some celebration tomatoes, which those can get big, but for me, they weren't very big. They were just a little bit bigger than golf balls. So I'm wondering if maybe I just put too much pressure on my tomatoes as far as before they even went into the ground. So I'm wondering if I put them in the ground a little smaller, that I might have some better results. We shall see this year, but we've been starting seeds all week. And like I said, I'll have a video up of how I use my sleeves. And if you want to use one of those discounts, they'll be in the show notes. So uh, I think I mentioned that we had another calf. It is not one of our dairy calves. It's actually one of our beef calves. And we thought that the dad was our dairy bull, but turns out it was actually our steer that we cut him late. Like he wasn't cut till after we already had a like 3 month confirmation, like preg check confirmation on this one cow. And we didn't think he was big enough. And so we still thought it was our dairy bull, but it came out of a purebred Angus and it's got a white face like our uh Hereford steer. So I'm thinking that it probably came out of him, which is a good thing. We did band him already, but he's going to grow really nice and be good for our freezer or someone else's or for like a 4-H kid. So we're really excited about him. We call him Rebel though because he is small and he just walks right under our hot wire fence and sleeps in the road. So luckily it's our driveway road and not the highway road, but I mean, there's still a chance, UPS comes rolling in or something and they don't see this tiny calf laying in the driveway. It's a little concerning. We did make the decision that we need to cull 2 of our sows this year. Um, it's a bummer. We always hate culling sows because when we decide to keep like a heifer, or not a heifer, a gilt or an older sow, um, that we like purchase, we do that on like they become pets to us. I mean, once they're a breeder, they get names, they get treats, they get, lots of extra loves. And we're gonna have to cull 2 this year. And that we don't like doing that. One of them though, her last 3 litters, she's only had 3 piglets. And this time she had 3 and then stepped on 2 like almost immediately, which isn't always their fault. I mean, I talked last week about how we lost a huge litter because we had a really agitated sow and we couldn't get her to calm down and she ended up hurting some of our piglets. Um, but in this case, we were already like, if she has another small litter, I think she's on her way out. Now, she's a much older sow. Like, she is probably 6 or 7. And we had bought her from someone else. And she's got really good show genetics, which is great. She's good for when we sell show pigs in the spring. So we'd already kept one of her gilts, and she's actually getting ready to go in with the boar like this month. She's definitely big enough. And her brothers, we kept them as boars and sold them, and they were flippin' stunning, like probably some of the most beautiful boars I've ever seen. So I'm excited to see what she looks like all filled out. She's coming out of winter, and all of our winter pigs always look bad, even our feeders, and then they're just going to take off here in the next month or so. And then I think we're going to go ahead and keep the one piglet that she just had. She's still in with her. It's a little gilt. She just looks like a total beast. Um, she's going to be really like get a really healthy start because she's the only one nursing off mom. And she's going to be easier to deal with because she's just a one piglet. And so we'll spend more time with her. So we're really excited about replacing um, our sows with these two. We also have another gilt. We actually have two gilts that we're watching right now. They'll be ready to breed in the fall for spring piglets. And we can't decide which one we want to keep, but we're gonna wait till it's like time to decide which one's going on the meat truck and which one's gonna go in to keep. And they're both like really beautiful, but there's one that's bigger and has a flatter back and a larger butt, which is something we're just really looking for as pig farmers. So the two that we're culling, one of them is this older one, and so if any of you have ever looked at my culling guide, I mean, I do have a link for it and I'll stick that in. It just goes through the steps of when it's time to decide that an animal needs to be culled, which is, gotten rid of in some way, but what your options are for culling them. Because a lot of people think cull and they think take them out to the back 40 and shoot them. And that's not always what culling means. Culling can be moving them to a different herd, which, we do some things like that. Uh, We've kept heifers that were like half dairy, half beef, and we wanted to see if they seemed more dairy or more beef. And if they weren't dairy enough, they got culled from our dairy herd and moved to our beef herd. They can sometimes have a different use. Like we have a dairy cow that she doesn't have a huge production, but she's perfect for us. And um, she'll take on other calves. And I mean, I mean, we wouldn't get rid of Bailey for anything, but um, we've made those decisions before. Like maybe they weren't super high producing, but they did something else for the farm. Another option for culling is selling them. Um, they might be a great animal for another property, but not for your own. Or somebody else might want it for meat, but you don't want it for meat because you don't need it, or you have a hard time like eating a sow or something that you've had for a long time. And we've done that. We had a sow that we had for a really long time and really liked her, and she was in great shape, but she wasn't producing anymore. So we sold her knowing she was going as a sausage sow, but at least we weren't the ones doing it. Um, so one of them that we are gonna cull. Oh, okay. And then there's also you can eat them, you can butcher them and feed them to other animals, or sometimes if they're sick or something and have a disease or a bad infection or something, they do just need to be, put down and, buried somewhere on the property or whatever you choose to do there. So the older one, she does not, I don't think she would be a good sausage sow for us or somebody else, which what that means is somebody or us would butcher her and turn her completely into sausage because older pig meat kind of just gets a little bit of a flavor to it. It's really, I don't even want to say gamey. It's got a different flavor completely. And so once they get to a certain age, it's not a thing. So she is going to go probably to dog food for us. And we have a friend that just got a new puppy that's going to be a large dog. And she just lost her dog and she's really upset about it. And so she wants to make sure this dog has the best of the best. And so she wants to do all like uh, natural meat, raw meat, like diet for him. So to kind of get them started, we're going to have them over and we're going to butcher this sow together and make her completely into dog food and then what's split whatever dog food we have between the two of us. And yeah, they didn't put a lot. I'm not going to charge them or anything, but what it is they come give us the hand that we need to butcher such a large animal, and then what they get out of it is some meat, which we do that a lot. Like people get like we probably do it like once a year, like kind of an old-fashioned hog butchering weekend. We'll butcher one or we'll slaughter and cut up one day, and then the next day we'll do all the processing. We do lunch, the kids run around and play. It's good times. The other sow that we're getting rid of, she's only had one litter and it wasn't an amazing litter. It was a good enough litter though that we're kind of bummed, but she got into a fight with another pig and it ripped her vulva. And we cleaned her up and doctored it. And it is like there's still like a flap of skin hanging there that like our vet didn't think was a good idea to go ahead and cut off. But she hasn't bred back in over a year. And so we don't know why she's not breeding back. We don't know if it's the injury, like it's a, physical barrier that she can't get bred, or if there's something else going on. Either way, we can't afford to have an animal on the property that's eating. I mean, I keep pretty good records, and it costs over $500 a year to feed a pig, which means I need her to produce at least 5 piglets a year to break even, if not more, because that's just break even point. And we try to breed them the sows have about 2 litters a year. And so if I'm getting no litter, and if they have 2 good litters, that could be 20 to 30 piglets. I mean, they are making they're earning their keep for sure. And I mean, that's just in like the 500 is just in feed costs. That doesn't include everything else it costs to run our farm. So yeah, I definitely need them to be having more than 5. And if they're having 0, they definitely need to go. However, she is only about 2 years old and has only had 1 litter. I think she would be a great sausage sow for somebody else. We have pretty full freezers right now, so we will probably go ahead and opt to sell her. Um, and if somebody wants to have her, try to breed her, they can, but either way, we're not feeding her. So, but I'll let them know I'm not gonna, not be uh transparent on that. So let's, move on from the sad, like having to put down our pigs, and move on to incubating because I love chicks. They're so cute. We have some in the incubator right now. We candled, and almost all of them have live chicks in them, like fully like developed, moving. We don't always candle when we incubate, especially with quail, because they have such a short incubation period that even if there are ones that don't develop, they're not a risk. Now, with chickens and especially anything that goes in longer, like ducks or some other game birds, if we're incubating those, we always candle because we don't want one that died really early or never developed and then is sitting in hot temperatures for 3.5 weeks. They're going to end up exploding. And if they explode, that's bacteria all over the incubator and could end up killing every chick that's born, or hatched. So that's something that we will do with the longer incubating eggs. So we didn't even plan it this way, but it works out that we are probably going to have chicks like Easter morning. So that's super fun. If you want more information on raising chicks or on incubating and brooding and even making money off your chicks, I do have a poultry incubation course on my site. I keep mentioning all these things I have. It was just kind of worked out that with everything that's happening on the homestead, I have a lot to share with either companies that I've partnered with or things that I've created that have made me and my family money. So I'm happy to share those with you. Uh, I'm getting ready to go back on the road. I have lots of events coming up over the next few months. In fact, in June, I think I'm at an event every weekend. So next week, I will be at the Great Homeschool Convention in Ohio. That's in Columbus, Ohio. So if you're near there, definitely pop in. I'm going to be at, I think it's called Intricately Tailored Homeschool Convention. It's a brand new one. It's over by Seattle. It's small, but it's one of those ones where if you want to go and like really get some inspiration, talk to people directly, get to spend a lot of time perusing curriculum and working with curriculum developers. There's going to be some great ones there. Some of my dearest friends that are curriculum creators as well. You could pretty much put together your whole year homeschool curriculum with some really unique things from every subject. So I would definitely, if you live in the Seattle area, I mean, even Portland, go ahead and hit this one up. And I mean, you can get links to all of the events I'm going to at like thehomesteadeducation.com/links. And there's a lot of great things there. So let's see, after that one, my husband and I are heading out to, oh, which at that one, my husband and I are speaking and then on homesteading or homeschooling on the homestead. But then we are doing a panel with our entire family where people can ask our teenagers and our first grader and us anything they want to know about homesteading, homeschooling, running a home, budgeting, cooking. I mean, like we are there to just answer their questions, and I'm really excited for that. Then my husband and I, like, I think it's the 16th, we're going to be over in Michigan. We're speaking at a conference there. We're actually speaking like 6 times. And it's a pretty big conference. It's the Inch Homeschool Conference in Lansing, Michigan. We're really excited. Also, Jenny Urick from Thousand Hours Outside will be there. She's the keynote. So that's always fun to get to see Jenny and um, get to speak with her and stuff because we are doing like a speaking thing Thursday night where we're all on stage together and get to talk about the things we're going to be talking about for the weekend and chat back and forth with each other. And I think that's going to be super exciting. After that one, I think my next one is might have a week or so off. And then in June, we're going to be in Denver for the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference. We're speaking there and doing kids activities. So I'm talking about raising self-sufficient kids and urban homesteading. And then I'm doing two kids events, one on local food and one on survival. That's going to be really fun. And we're also going to go visit some family while we're there. And then there's the Montana Homeschool Conference or Homeschool Homestead Conference in Sanders County, Montana. It's a really small county, but they've got some great people coming, some really big names. My husband and I will be there. We're speaking at the event, as is Anacita Scott and Daniel Salatin, Joel Salatin's son. Um, Justin Rhodes. I mean, it's gonna be a good one. And then the weekend after that, we are all gonna be together again at the Modern Homesteading Conference in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And then my next one will be I'm speaking at the Phoenix Homeschool Conference, the Arizona Family Home Educators, I think is the name of that conference. Like I said, you can find them all in there. I just wanted to let you guys know where I was going to be. So if you want to come watch us speak, get to know us a little bit better, and just get some inspiration on homesteading and homeschooling, like that's going to be some great places to come see us. I only had one question this week on the Help Me Grow questions, and it was actually about using Homestead Science in a co-op. And I debated whether or not I really wanted to go into this when that's kind of a more direct business question. But then I realized I get that question a lot. So I want to put it out there like right away. It is great for co-ops. I've taught it myself in our co-op. I've had a lot of other families use it in co-ops. I have special co-op pricing. Um, just especially if you have a bigger group, I can get you a really good deal on it. Um, I have stuff for every age group. So like I have the coloring book, which has the letters and like animal coloring pages, there's facts, and there's 26 homestead activities to do. So that's a really good one for like preschool, kindergarten level, where they're learning their letters, you're wanting to find activities to do as a group. The little ones, they're very hands-on, and you can associate that with so many other things when you're dealing with the letters. And kids, like so many kids love farms. So, if you're like A for animals, like they might remember that more than the A for apple. They may not, but I mean, it's just something that I think it definitely locks in for them. For the little learners, that one is an amazing one for co-ops. I loved doing that one. We do semester long classes, so I definitely have to condense it down, which is we only meet one day a week and for just an hour for each group. So I condense it down where we only do one or two lessons per unit. So there's 9 units. And just depending on how many classes there are, like sometimes we'll do 16 classes in a semester. And so I can stretch it out a little. But I'll start it out by reading the stories and maybe doing a worksheet that day or starting a project that's like gonna follow over to the next week. And then the next week I do more of the hands-on projects. Like one of them is they grow microgreens. So we start them all together the first week. In fact, that one takes so long, I actually read to them while they're starting. And then I take them home with me and grow them for the week. And then I take them back and the kids get to eat them. And that's a lot of fun. And we chat and I go over things. I often don't make the kids do each of the worksheet activities. when I'm teaching that class because sometimes that's just busy work. I'll have them with me in case they get done early, but I kind of just talk to them while we're doing the projects. And they get so much out of it. Like the parents loved like how much they would come home and just talk about what they did. For the high schoolers, or also if you have like a more intense co-op or a full year co-op, you can use the little learners with the expansion pack and get a lot more lessons and more hands-on stuff. For your junior high, high school level, that's my introduction to Homestead Science. That one is a little harder to do in co-ops, but depending on how you formulate your co-op, it can work really well. So if it's a full year co-op or if it's a co-op that requires homework or has, it offers credits and stuff, I would just teach it really traditionally. Just figure out how many lessons you need to teach a week and stretch that out for your year. And do as many of the projects as you can. I mean, especially the long-term ones, if you are doing your school in a place where you can do them. Uh, if you are a shorter one, I would, instead of trying to get through the whole book, I would pick a few units that you really want to hone in on or projects you really want to do and just use those. That's a really great option, like to get the digital and like just the teacher has it and she or he figures out the assignments. They maybe do the reading to the kids, or if they're older kids, send the reading home and they read before class or something. And that one works really nice that way. I also have Survival Basics, which I designed completely to do with my co-op and then wrote it out for you guys. So that one's a really good one to do as a co-op. There's a lot of projects. I do offer a kit with all the stuff in it, but it's really only for one student. But depending on your co-op, sometimes um, they're up to just buying the supplies like that. Especially because I can get discount prices on like the water testing kits and things like that. However, I do provide all the links for everything, so you can just go to Amazon and buy whatever you need for a group. And then I have a new curriculum coming out. It's kind of what this part of what this episode's about, so I'm just gonna go right over that one. Remember, if you have any questions about stuff on your homestead, your homeschool, anything you're doing in life, as rural families, it doesn't matter. Shoot me your questions over at thehomesteadeducation.com/help me grow. And I am happy to answer your questions right there, but then also pick some that I think would be helpful to everybody on the podcast or even on social media if they're smaller questions. So, or something I need to show videos of. Hey guys, I know that we are always looking for ways to connect our homeschool kids with our communities and find things to do when we're out and about. Plus, it is so important to be connecting with like-minded families and those that have the same interests that we do. That's why I'm so excited to announce the new app that just launched. Basecamp Ed is a community-based platform for parents to find like-minded families and dedicated teachers in their area. Whether you homeschool your children, are curious about it, or simply want to build a community of extracurricular activities, Basecamp Ed has you covered. Connect with local parents to create co-ops, form groups for your children's interests, and use the calendar to schedule events with ease. Teachers and coaches can also create profiles to list their credentials for parents to find a way to supplement subjects and activities. Homeschooling was never meant to be done alone. It takes a village. Build it with Basecamp Ed. Take advantage of this free resource and download it today. You can also follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Basecamp Ed app for the latest updates. And you can get the link to that in the show notes for this episode. Now, hopping over to today's topic. This is one that I absolutely love, and I don't know that I've ever really, I don't know, when I talk about business stuff, I get really excited because I love doing business. I love thinking outside the box. I love running budgets. Like I'm super weird like that, but I legitimately get excited. And this week, we're talking about whether or not you understand the economics of your homestead. So, economics are a little different than actually running your business, like actually doing like the budget and ordering. Um, that's more like business operations, that's accounting. What I'm talking about is understanding the concepts of economics. And I think that a lot of adults have a basic understanding of what economics is. However, they can't like quite like put words to it or even apply it in what they're doing. And I think, I know in high school I had to take economics as a senior. I did like a government and economics course. We had to do a business plan, all those things. And I enjoyed the class, but I don't think I could have honestly told you what some of the concepts of economics were. I even went on to get two business and accounting degrees where I took economics classes. And when I was getting my ag degree, I took agriculture economics. And that one was probably the one that clicked for me the most because instead of just studying conceptual economic concepts, we were doing it in practice. And it was with things that actually made sense. And even for people who aren't farmers, if you are buying food, you are part of the economics of agriculture. So I think it just puts it a little bit more into real play of what people are doing on a regular basis. That, yes, I'm part of the economics of Nike. I don't buy Nike shoes unless I find them on sale or at Ross, or at a thrift store because I just don't, we aren't a big tennis shoe family. We're a little bit more, I guess in the past when the kids played baseball, if I caught Nikes on sale, they would use baseball like Nike cleats. But I don't really have a need for Nikes at the barn. And occasionally when the kids do want tennis shoes, or we just need a new pair of tennis shoes, like I don't know, I just buy whatever is on sale or whatever looks cute. It doesn't matter if it's Nike or not. And that is part of like, I don't even want to say like global economics because they are such a huge business that brings in so much money and they're following consumer trends and they're really leveraged by supply and demand, both in what they are purchasing to create their products, but then also what they're selling to the consumers. They're affected by things like the tariffs that we're all looking at right now because a lot of their processing plants are overseas or their supplies come in from overseas if some of these larger companies are producing in the United States. I'm not sure on Nike, and I just use them as an example because they're a large company. Whereas, so I mean, and that's kind of just a larger concept that we all kind of understand is happening. We understand the basics of it for the most part. If you don't, I mean, that's okay too, probably. I don't know. If you're trying to run a business, probably not. Um, and but like when we are doing it ourselves, when we're trying to run a business, when we're trying to even homestead as low key, like even if it's a hobby homestead, but you're trying to make a little money off of it just to keep it sustainable, or even just to make it worth it to grow your own food, without it costing you more than it would at the grocery store, which some people they choose to grow their own food because it's better for them and it doesn't matter how much the cost at the grocery store is, or it's just legitimately their hobby. And I mean, that's even how it is for us. Sometimes my husband and I talk about, man, like we never go fishing anymore. And um, I'm like, well, but we don't eat the fish. And for us, we just tend to gravitate towards hobbies that provide something to us, other than the experience. Which I mean, we like to go hiking and we will go fishing. We take the kids swimming and we like to go on road trips and we do educational road trips with which I guess we're getting experience on that, or the kids are getting their schooling. But I mean, there's even things like I really love to do needlepoint, and I haven't done it in forever because I just don't have the time for it. And if I want to keep my hands busy, I would rather be working, and that's just I enjoy that, or working in my garden, if I want to keep my hands busy. And so there is just that choice. Like we have to just accept that our hobby is our home and our homestead. And if we are doing like for fun gardening, like flowers and stuff like that, it's because we want our homestead to look nice for the guests that come here to our store for classes. So, um, there's still a level of economics with that because that's personal economics. So now, how this kind of applies to a homestead. So like I kind of talked about this large scale economics and that it's really conceptual for a lot of people unless you're an economist. Whereas if you own a business, especially a small business, you need to understand local economics and to some extent, not even global economics, maybe more national economics, because, if we're in a recession or something, that's going to hurt everybody's business. However, I don't think that any of the inputs that currently go into my homestead are being affected by like the tariffs right now. Does that mean that like in a year when I need to buy new fencing material and maybe the fencing material is produced overseas and that's going to cost me more? Yeah, I think that that might have an effect. But right now, like the feed and those types of things that go into um, my animals aren't affected by international economics. Um, so one of the big ones is understanding supply and demand. Supply is how much product you have or how much time or people you have to provide a service. And demand is whether or not people want to buy it. Now, the supply can also be your supply, or are there 30 other people in your county that are growing the same product as you? Even if you have low supply on it, the supply is too large if there's 30 other people. No, I mean, it would take a huge demand to make sure that that's being filled. Now, recently, with the egg prices, I I think everybody and their brother was selling eggs online because there was none in the grocery store and they were like $8 a dozen. And most local people were like, hey, my eggs are $5, $6 a dozen and always have been. I'm not raising that price. And it's springtime, so I have 15 dozen sitting on the shelf. Please come buy them. And we were literally selling about 15 dozen a week, 15 dozen eggs a week. And so was everybody else in our community, even people that didn't normally sell eggs. They were like, hey, the community needs eggs. I can make a few extra bucks off of this. I'm going to sell my eggs. And there was really no end to that demand because even with the number of people that raised chickens, there was just still enough people that wanted eggs. And I was even selling them to outside counties because we do sell other products too. Like I wasn't driving to another county to deliver five or, a $5 dozen of eggs. But I was driving to another county to sell, a thing of pork, a gallon of milk, and a couple dozen eggs with it. And people were actually buying, going ahead and buying those packages. So if there is no demand, though, right now the egg things have mellowed out. I don't have a demand for eggs, and I have about 20 dozen eggs. So we're looking at recipes that use a lot of eggs. We're looking at making breakfast burritos that are then they're in the freezer and we can eat on them for a couple of months. And I'm trying to sell as many as I can. We don't have a freeze dryer right now, and I don't like the idea of water glassing. Not even that I'm against the long-term food preservation of it. I just don't really have a place to do that I feel like it would be maintained properly. So nothing against it. However, the thing is with eggs is they do have a limited shelf life, especially if we're not preserving them in some way. So if the supply is too high and there's not enough demand, I can't maintain my prices and still make money. So my options are lower my price, which I don't feel like I want to do. My eggs are $5 a dozen. They're $5 a dozen during egg price crisis, and they're $5 a dozen over the summer when everybody has eggs. So that's just where I sit with that. I don't adjust my prices on it, and I'm okay with that because I will consume the eggs. However, if I had a ton of tomatoes, like literally a ton, and they like non-frozen, which I can't sell them frozen like legally because then it's a processed product. Not unless I have, my special permits, but just as a produce seller. So my window to sell tomatoes is maybe a week. And then I can choose to freeze them for myself, but I also only have so much room in my freezers. So, or I can can them, but I a lot of times freeze my tomatoes in the fall and can over the winter because that's just where my time is. And so you have to look at the length of time that your product has a shelf life. when considering prices. So with that, at the beginning of summer, when everybody's excited for the first fresh, the first ripe tomatoes, I can probably sell my tomatoes for a little bit more. I actually don't know what tomatoes go for at this point, but let's say I sell them for $2 a pound. And that adds up quick because tomatoes are heavy. But towards the end of summer, I may be more like they're $1 for a bag, and I don't even know how many pounds are in the bag, but you come to buy pork and you can buy a paper bag full of tomatoes for $1. Or I might even say, like, if you want to come up and finish harvesting my tomatoes, you can just have them. And that's like a you pick type thing. So it just really depends on what you're doing throughout the year with your product. And that all comes into that supply and demand principle of economics. And really, what it is there is a balance. They call it the equilibrium. And it's where you decide how much your product needs to go for. And that's where you're going to get the most profit, and that's where you're going to sell the most based on the demand. And then they meet in the middle. And if you're watching me on YouTube, I'm doing this thing with my hands, to like show what the equilibrium means. But if you're not, then you just have to pretend. Um, and that equilibrium is really important in finding that because otherwise you're going to have swinging prices, you're going to be undercutting yourself, you're not going to be making the money that you could be making. And sometimes that's okay. Like if you are not a tomato producer, you just grow tomatoes for yourself, but you have extra, and so you just want to sell them and just sell them for anything to make a little extra. Or like I said, most people come here to get their pork, milk, and eggs for the week, and now I can go ahead and sell a bag of tomatoes for a buck too. Like awesome. Like it just adds to my overall income, but it really probably didn't cost me anything substantial to grow those tomatoes, and I was going to do it for myself anyways. So that's something you kind of have to look at with that local economics. And local economics can change drastically. Um, Here, mostly everybody's growing tomatoes. So I'm not going to sell a ton of tomatoes, but I could turn around and sell those same tomatoes 2 counties over where it's a much bigger city. And even though it's still a rural city, it's a much bigger one. And I can come in and say, these are homegrown homestead tomatoes that they're non-GMO, heirloom, and I never put any pesticides on them. And they're all hand grown. And people would pay 2, 3 times the amount to have those tomatoes if I'm willing to market them in another county. Now with tomatoes and that short shelf life, unless I have somebody who's already saying like I want a case of tomatoes because I'm going to can with them and I only want these, higher quality ones, then chances are I'm not really going to push that. Whereas I do sell my pork. Like I have locals who buy my pork and yeah, no problem. They buy it, they know what it's worth, and they spend the money. But a lot of times my marketing is out of area because they are specifically looking for that high quality pork, and I can do bigger sales with them, like quarter hogs and half hogs, which then a lot of times makes it worth it for me to deliver and things like that. Um, Something to consider though with a homestead is that you really need to look at economies of scale. And what that means is, the company like Nike, they're going to be able to get the products that they need to produce their shoes at next to nothing prices because of the quantity in which they're buying. Which I guess I don't know, maybe Nike isn't the best like um comparison, but when I am selling my pork or growing my pork, if I were to buy bags of feed from just the local feed store or even a big box feed store, I would be spending almost 3 times as much to feed my hogs. It's just, it's not sustainable. There's no way I'd be able to do it. And there's no way I'd be able to do it for a price that my customers would be willing to pay while also making an income and selling my product within a reasonable amount of time. So I will often, um, sorry, I just kind of, we only buy our feed from a feed mill, like a local feed mill, and we buy it by the ton. And doing that, it cuts my price almost by a third. And it makes it so much easier to be able to feed our large group because, with the number of pigs that we have, if our kids have to open a bag of feed to feed them, it often takes 2 or 3 bags of feed a day to feed them. And we do sometimes have to buy bags of feed because we're a little short on money, so we just go buy what we can afford. Or like starter feed for the piglets, I only need that for a few months. And so I won't buy that by the ton. I'll just buy it, like a half pallet or something. And yeah, when they're feeding a lot of starter piglets, they're opening 2 or 3 bags of feed a day. And that's just the time and labor that goes into that and the amount of trash that we have to get rid of is not worth it. So that's where economies of scale come in. If you can buy things in bulk, it's going to cost you less to produce it, and therefore you can either charge the same amount as your neighbor but have a higher profit, or you can charge, um, say hello, Savannah. Oh, my child's in here stealing things from the closet. So you can either, charge the same amount and make more than your neighbor, or you can charge less, make the same amount as your neighbor, but profit per product, or probably even make more because you're selling for less than your neighbor, and the customers are then going to want to buy from you because you have the lower prices. However, if you're friends with your neighbor, you might want to stick to the same prices and just not let them know that you're making more money. Um, just something to consider and, make your product more valuable in other ways by like the education you provide or something like that. Now, there is something called the law of diminishing returns. And I actually use this description a lot with when people want to make money selling chickens on their homestead. And that's because, there's kind of the joke that you're never going to, make a profit selling eggs. And there's a really good chance of that. I mean, but honestly, we have an egg producer in our county that they are producing like a lot and they're going to all the grocery stores and they have huge um they're like chicken tractors, but they're more like hen houses on wheels that the chickens come out of every day, and then there's like hot wire netting around them. And I mean, they're doing it and they're making money off of it. But this law of diminishing returns is, say you decide you want to start selling eggs or chicks or whatever it is from your poultry operation. And at first it's going to be like, oh yeah, I saved a little money on feed. But then you get a little more serious about it. You're going to produce a little more and you're going to market your products and you start making money. And you keep going that way like, wow, I'm making money, I'm marketing. Now I'm making enough money that I can buy our feed in bulk. And so that's, saving us even more money. And it just kind of goes up and up until you hit a point where you have maxed out on your space or possibly maxed out on how many eggs you're legally able to sell without having a certain permit or whatever that limiting factor may be. And in order to buy the large hen houses on wheels that the people in my county have, you're going to have to take out a loan or spend all the profits you've been saving up to buy one of those. But if you can't fill it or get that many eggs sold, you're actually going to start losing money. And that's that place of the law of diminishing returns. And I mean, that can happen in any business. Or, like in order to maintain that many birds, you have to hire help and then you hire help. So then like that's all your profit. So then you're basically doing it for free. And then what's the point? So though that's something that you really need to consider when you're looking at the whole economies of scale and the law of diminishing returns. I'm going to kind of blast through some of these other things. I feel like understanding the principles is a huge piece of it. The rest of it is just, like homesteaders get their land and labor and capital in different ways. A lot of times their land, they're not buying a piece of property to start a business. They're buying a home and then trying to make a profit from the land that they live on. Um, Production planning and budgeting. This is a big one, especially with the homesteaders, because there's not always clear input. Um, an output on what they're making, and a lot of what they're making is non-monetary income. So I'll use my tomato example again. I could tell you what probably went into growing my entire garden, but I couldn't tell you exactly what went into just growing my tomatoes, other than maybe the amount of seeds I purchased and the soil and like trays that directly went to tomato starting. But yeah, the inputs as far as like water and fertilizers. And I mean, I don't know that I could tell you that. And then what my income is, I might only sell $20 worth of tomatoes, which probably covered all of my costs or more. But the fact that I didn't have to buy tomatoes all summer long made it where I had money that I could use on other things or invest back into my homestead. Or if we're broke, then I'm not having to pay for tomatoes or go without tomatoes in order to pay our bills. So there's not like always a clear picture. Whereas with my pigs, that one I actually can almost tell you like down to the penny how much it costs me per pound to raise out my hogs, how much I make off of them, and I even have it where like our personal finances pay the business for the hogs that we put into our freezers. So even the one I'm culling here soon, that's gonna be like I sell sausage hogs for $300 and we're giving half to a friend. So probably I'll say that like there was a $150 profit like to the homestead from selling this pig, and the money comes out of like quote personal funds because that's what I would be spending on dog food. So I mean, I kind of, that one's a little muddier, but as far as raising my pigs and how much I need to make off of them and how much it costs me at the butcher and the calculation of how much I should charge and all of that, I have that down to like a T. And if that's something you need help with, I do offer business coaching and I create like spreadsheets and asanas and things like that for you, as well as any business, like a business plan. So that's something to consider. Um, And like I said, I have that all worked out and how to manipulate those numbers as well to see like if I make this change, what would happen. And I think that's really important. Market research and understanding consumer trends. That is another thing that, kind of like I said, find out what your neighbors are charging because if they're charging $5 a gallon for milk and you're charging $10 a gallon for milk, people are probably going to buy from them and not buy from you. And then you're making zero profits when you're making zero sales. And so there is a certain number that you need to have a profit, but you also don't want to be the one undercutting someone else. You don't want to be losing money. And so making some adjustments, like, are you going to have a higher cash flow if you maybe charge 8 or 7.50 for your milk, but you can say that you feed your animals on all non-GMO feed. Somebody might be willing to pay that extra 2.50 a gallon from you, but they're not going to pay double the amount. It's just kind of the way it works. So you need to look at what's going on in your community. And there's a lot of communities that do not care about non-GMO and things like that. So pretty much your biggest selling point is going to be whether or not you donate to the local church every year or whatever. So just keep that in mind. Uh, when you design a business plan, you need to make sure you have a mission statement, your financials, and your timeline. You need to know why you're doing it, how you're going to do it, and how long it's going to take you. You need this for yourself. You need this if you're going to a bank. I mean, you need this on the days that you are like, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. I do not want to be a homesteader anymore. Like, you need to come in and see your plan and your goals. And, I joke about that, but we have a mission statement for our homeschool. We have one for both of our businesses because there's days that are just hard. Um, you need to look at all your legal and regulatory considerations. There are a lot of weird laws when it comes to food. There's a lot of loopholes in those laws. If and I mean, I've done an entire podcast episode and several blogs just on this topic. So I will link, there's a blog post and then it links to the podcast that I've done. So I'll link that in the show notes because if you're concerned about the regulatory requirements of raising something, selling your meat, selling your milk, any of it, that is a good place to go to get that information. Um, And you need to keep records of all of your stuff. So when I talk about exactly how much it costs me to feed out hogs and how I can manipulate it and all those things, that's not only for my taxes or my bookkeeping, it's also so that I can look back at my numbers and say, hey, I didn't make as much of a profit last year, but I sold the same number of pigs. What changed? And sometimes that's the price of feed. Sometimes power went up. Did the power go up because I was actually using more power? Or do we have like a leaky pipe somewhere or something like that that is running my well all the time? And it's worth it to me to get that fixed because it costs me $100 a month extra in power, but it'd only be $300 to fix it. And so over the course of a year, I'm saving myself almost a grand. Those are big changes to look at, and you need to be able to track those numbers. And I'm telling you that story because we've actually had that happen like 3 times now because we have really old pipes on our property. Um, I think the next biggest thing is, and like I have a lot on this list, but I don't want to just like keep hammering on the same type of topics. So the next thing that I really want to consider is risk management and diversification on your homestead. And risk management, of course, people a lot of times think insurance. And yeah, absolutely have insurance. Like get farm insurance, get liability insurance for people that are on your property. Especially any of you who are doing where people come and buy things from your property, come and buy animals, or come take classes or some sort of agritourism, you really want liability insurance. And it's not as much as you think it's going to be. It's like an add-on to your homeowners. And so you aren't having to pay all those base costs of just having insurance in general. You're only having to pay that like extra that like puts that add-on there. Or at least that's how most insurance companies work. Sorry, I'm trying to like drink my drink and it's like not working. And so then the diversification. And I talk about diversification a lot when it comes to business, especially on a homestead, because you have to have that constant income. You have to have ways that you're not going to go broke. And that's where that diversification comes from. If your busy season is in the summer when you have fresh produce and you have nothing in the winter, it's time to start looking at processing some of your produce and selling it as cottage foods in the winter or in the spring selling plant starts so that other people can grow their tomatoes. It's not going to undercut your overall tomato sales in the summer. I guarantee it. So you just need to look at that. And even if it does undercut your summer sales, you're making money year round. So it's going to be better. And on a homestead, it's like I say 5 different forms of income. I actually have 7 with some of my stuff. And then all of a sudden you have 5 different forms of income for 5 different products, and you're making a consistent income year round. But that's where risk management comes in when you're looking at the laws of economics. Now, recently, my kids, or this year for school, my son, he wanted his elective to be raw milk, which I know that sounds like a strange elective, but I understood what he was getting at with it. He basically wanted to take dairy science, but he wanted it to be focused on his small raw milk dairy. So that includes making sure he has all of the certifications he needs, all understanding all the food safety, understanding the health of his cows, the nutrition, how to do calving, because we had the first one that he didn't calve by himself, but it was the first one that he was like in charge of that calving. Um, he's been learning how to market, how to work with customers, how to teach people about raw milk, but he wanted to do some of the economics of it. Now, he didn't know it was called economics, but he's like, hey, like maybe I should do a business plan or something. Because I kind of let them build their own electives. And so a lot of times they'll come to me and be like, this is the part of it that I need from you. And I'm big on my high schoolers teaching themselves. So I didn't want to, I thought that like I decided that a ag economics or homestead economics style course was important for both my son and then my daughter also. She was doing cooking for the first semester and then was kind of like, well, that, the second semester, I'm not really sure what I want to do. So I said, would you be interested in home study or in ag economics? And she's like, I don't know what it is, but sure, let's do it. And so I started putting together what they would need to plan a homestead business, write a business plan, look at, consumer trends locally, create logos, do all that fun stuff that comes with like the business planning projects, but also understanding why they were doing it. Like not just creating a logo because it's fun, but creating a logo that would actually attract their ideal customer. Because let's face it, if they're selling raw milk, the customer wants to see something that is aesthetically pleasing with neutral colors and soft lines and things like that. Whereas maybe if they were selling Nintendo games, like, did I just say Nintendo? Like, that's how old I am. If they are playing, just selling some sort of video game in general, um, they're probably going to want to use like harsher lines, brighter colors, more robotic style fonts. I mean, it's just, and yeah, it might be fun for a teenage boy to create a logo like that, but like they need to understand that if they're trying to make money selling raw milk or pretty much anything off their homestead, they may need to formulate that a little different. Even if they're going into like doing mechanics or something, there's still a look that people are looking for. And like I said, it's a bigger picture than just learning how to work Canva and creating a logo. It's understanding why you're making that logo for that particular customer. Um, However, like all the other curriculums I've written, I started looking for a curriculum or a guide or handouts or something to teach them ag economics without just buying like a college level economics textbook. I wanted something that fit our homeschool model. And again, I'm finding a lot of nothing. I'm sure I probably could have found an economics curriculum and then asked them to apply it to their homestead or farm product, but I didn't think that I didn't feel like that was what I was seeking out for them. I wanted something that related more to what we were doing on the homestead and related more to something that they could applicably be doing. And so I started writing one. And the more I wrote, the more I realized I wanted more put into it. Like I found on a website a really good graph on how to calculate some stuff or like a table to fill in stuff. And I was like, oh, this would be perfect. But then I realized I would then also need to teach them that. And because I really feel like they need to be teaching themselves at this age and like seeking out that information, or even if they're not teaching themselves, be able to independently learn without me having to give a lecture, just being there if they have questions or solidifying the facts for them. And so when I start writing, a lot of times that just keeps flowing. And I have ended up creating, or I'm wrapping up the details right now, but I have created a homestead economics and business course for high schoolers. I made sure that it covered all the hourly and educational requirements to meet about half a credit of agriculture business or economics, or just a standard economics course for at high school level. I basically I looked at what the states, different states required for a full year, and we actually covered about two-thirds of those concepts. And then it works into the hourly requirements for a half a unit. And I'll have some suggestions in there on how maybe you could make that a whole unit if they do ag economics for the first semester and then start their business for the second semester, or go work for somebody who has an agriculture business for that second semester. And that's just, it's not an official credit from a school or something, but it's what you could be putting on your high school transcripts to meet that. Or if you're a teacher and you want to teach this in your school, this does meet all those requirements that you need to be able to prove to your higher ups to purchase it. So, first off, Okay, those of you who are on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, hop over to the website and check it out because look how beautiful that cover is. Like, I am seriously in love with it. Like, I am so drawn to this curriculum that like I could stare at that cover all day long. So that's just that's the start right there. Um, it is 16 lessons that last for 16 weeks. So the lessons are broke down by there's written reading with, graphs and colors and, bringing it all together. There's workbook assignments, and then the workbook assignment kind of explains what else they need to do for the week. There's also a schedule or a sample schedule of what a week would look like. In that, I also do a case study. It's not a real homestead, it's a homestead I've made up, but they work through different scenarios so that they're doing all these projects in something that is realistic to them, not a conceptual or a very large business that, yeah, some people are going to go into business in that way, but they're probably going to go on to college and take another economics course that covers that. But they're going to go into it with a much better understanding than another student who has taken a standard economics course. So this isn't just for homestead and agricultural families. Um, I also will have a video course with each lesson, and it's just going to kind of give an explanation of what the lessons mean. I'm not just going to sit there and reread the lesson. It's going to be to enhance the lesson. So for those families that don't do the videos with their stuff or only want the video to learn how to do the math problem or something, that's fine. You don't have to watch every video, but it is there to give real life experiences, to point, students in the right direction of current affairs that are going on with different topics, to explain how to do the math and to practice vocabulary within the course. And so that's a really fun like kind of add-on with it, and everybody gets access to that as soon as you buy the course, whether you buy digital or printed. Um, there's going to be vocabulary cards. It's not super heavy on vocabulary, but it will come with vocabulary cards and vocabulary quizzes for each lesson. But then at the end of each unit, which there's 3 lessons in a unit, so about every 3 weeks to a month, there will be a unit test that goes over how all these concepts all work together. There's going to be math with it, like, using a case study project, that type of thing on the tests. Now, as a parent, I mean, I would say, depending on your student, I wouldn't, if you feel like they would do better having their notes or doing an open book, I think with things like this, it's more important that they understand the concepts than to make sure that they are memorizing. And I think that's just the theme on homeschooling in general. Um, I will have the students read a relevant book throughout the curriculum. I will have a running book list going on the website, like in the resource library with the course, and it'll have a list of about 10 books that I think really hit not just on agriculture economics, but kind of that more homestead economics and the trends that are moving with that, so that that's a little more understood. But there will be options for books that are just agricultural economics based if that's more the direction your student wants to go. And you can have them read as many of those books as you want. You can read them. This is just so that they can pick one book and read through it throughout the course. They'll be taking notes on it throughout the course, and at the end, I'll walk them through the steps of writing a paper on it. I think this gives where they can take the paper and current events and what they've learned and write an essay based on that. And every quarter, if the students turn these essays into me, whether it's through the online course, portal, or just email them to me, I will like grade them and look them over. I'll give feedback because I just think that that is a huge part of it. But I'm going to pick one that gets a prize every quarter. And, pretty much what I'm going to do is probably pick about 5 that meet all the requirements, like fill in the rubric, like I'll pick all 5 A's or whatever, and then randomly draw so that it's earned but fair. And I'll give like $100 gift card or to a business that they're interested in or something like that. I'm still writing out all those details, and at least for the first year quarterly as homeschoolers, we don't always do like straight semesters, or some families will start a curriculum like that and do it in 16 days rather than 16 weeks. So, and I'll have all that on the website and the information about it and when I'm going to be doing a drawing and stuff. The other part is the students will be the whole second half of the lesson be creating, or of the course, be creating a business plan, one that they could present to a business partner or to a bank or, whatever to start a business. And they will have the opportunity to present that in the private Homestead Science group on Facebook, which has currently 2,500 members. There may be more by the time they come on. And what that does is they get to share it, they get feedback. There might be somebody who could benefit from it, or there might be somebody who thinks it's a really good idea and wants to support them in this. I mean, I'm not promising anything, but I just think that that's really helpful for the students to be able to present it to a large group without having to stare at a large group because that's kind of nerve-wracking. They can do it where they video themselves. They can do it where it's a PowerPoint presentation that they just run the video, like whatever works for them. And I'll have all the information on that as well. But I think that that would just be, I really want to support the students in these business plans. And I think that um, they will benefit from not only the experience of creating a presentation in that way and then presenting it digitally, whether it's videoing themselves or whatever. They can have like files that go with it where anybody who's looking at it can download the numbers or something, however they would like to present their business plan. And then they can, put it, in their public speaking or presentation or whatever their credits they're needing as well. And then, yeah, sorry, there's no more. That was all of it. But I'm just so excited to see how this, like, I don't want to say turn out. I've written it, but I'm putting together all these like little details of supporting the students through the course and the final details on my course videos, some of the videos I haven't recorded yet. Um, and it's available for order now. It's going to be shipping or digital access will be provided May 1st. So if you're before that and you want to order it, go ahead and hop over and I'll get you on the list. And if it's after May 1st, like, well, it's definitely there and available. So, um, if you order it early, there's a discount and that's all on the website. Um, so that's a little bit of an incentive to order it early when you're really, most people who ordered a book from me right now wouldn't have it in their hands for a couple weeks anyways, just because of business flow and our logistics. So it's pretty much the same with this. If you order it now, you'll probably have it like the first week of May. And if you have digital, then you'll have it the first week of May for sure. So go ahead and head over to the website, check out Homestead Business and Economics. It is a great course for high school students, but all of you adults who are running or starting a homestead business and you feel like some of the things I said were like, wow, I need to dive deeper into that, or I'd like to work out the numbers, or I want more information. This course is for you too. It is not just for high schoolers. And what you can do with that is, I mean, you're not going to find another business course like this for the price that I'm charging, because if you go into business courses that like digital business courses, they are so expensive. Like you would not believe it. And I have this set at homeschool prices. So this is going to be the best deal you're going to get on this type of education. So I'm excited for everyone to go check it out. I'm excited for it to launch, and I hope that everybody keeps growing. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!